What if I told you that one artificial intelligence already controls the global economy? Not in the future, not a Skynet fantasy, right now. It doesn't trade stocks, it tells everyone else how to trade. It's called Aladdin, and it's the best-kept secret on Wall Street. In 2008, when the entire financial world was burning to the ground, when Lehman Brothers evaporated and the system was minutes from collapse, the US government didn't call a banker for the answer. They called the machine. Most people hear BlackRock and they think of money. $10 trillion in assets, a shadow bank bigger than the economy of every nation on Earth, save two. But they're wrong. BlackRock isn't a bank, it's a tech company. And the $10 trillion, that's just the bait. Their real product is Aladdin. The story of this AI isn't a story about money. It's a story about a system designed for a single purpose, to eliminate risk, to see the future so clearly that failure becomes impossible. But in building this digital god, they may have inadvertently created the single greatest risk in human history. You need to see how this machine works. You need to understand its language, because whether you know it or not, Aladdin is already analyzing your pension. It's stress testing your mortgage. It's running simulations on your future. And it's whispering its conclusions into the ears of the most powerful people on the planet. This isn't a story about a machine that will one day take over. This is the story of a machine that already has. To understand the machine, you have to understand the man who built it. And you have to understand the day he failed. The man is Larry Fink. Today, he's the billionaire CEO of BlackRock, the king of Wall Street. But in the 1980s, he was just a hotshot bond trader at a bank called First Boston. He was a pioneer. He helped create the mortgage-backed security market, the very instrument that would nearly destroy the world decades later. He was a star. He was making millions. He thought he was invincible. And then, in 1986, he made a mistake. A sudden, unexpected shift in interest rates. A blind spot. A risk he didn't see. In a single quarter, Larry Fink's department lost $100 million. In today's money, that's over $280 million. He went from a god to a ghost. His career was shattered. He was toxic. He was fired. This failure became the defining trauma of his life. It's the ghost that haunts the entire BlackRock empire. Fink learned a lesson that day that would make him the most powerful man in finance. The human gut is worthless. Intuition is a liability. The markets are too fast, too complex, too dangerous for a human mind to comprehend. He realized he hadn't just made a bad bet. He had failed because he couldn't see the risk. Slightly mysterious, authoritative, but with an undercurrent of curiosity. The pace should be variable. Fast when describing chaos, and slow, deliberate when revealing core truths. So in 1988, when he and a small group of partners founded BlackRock, their mission wasn't to get rich. That was a byproduct. Their mission was to build a machine that could see everything. A machine that would never be surprised. A machine that would ensure they would never lose money again. They set out to build a god. and they called it Aladdin. The name is an acronym, a sterile corporate one: Asset, Liability, Debt and Derivative Investment Network. But the name belies its true nature. Aladdin is not a trading robot. You can't ask it, "What stock should I buy today?" It's so much more powerful than that. Aladdin is a prophet. It is a central nervous system for the entire planet's financial data. Here's what it does. Every single day, Aladdin's servers, hidden in secure data centers, ingest a tsunami of information. Not just stock prices and bond yields. It analyzes news feeds in every language. It scrapes political reports. It monitors weather patterns. It analyzes social media sentiment. It ingests data on trade routes, shipping container movements, energy consumption, currency fluctuations, and geopolitical tensions. It takes everything, the entire complex, chaotic reality of our world, and translates it into one thing: risk. But its real power isn't just seeing the present, it's simulating the future. Every night, while the world sleeps, Aladdin runs millions of high-speed, catastrophic simulations. What happens to your portfolio if a supertanker blocks the Suez Canal? What happens if the Fed unexpectedly hikes interest rate by 100 basis points? What happens if a new, deadlier virus emerges in Southeast Asia? What happens if a CEO has a sudden heart attack, or a politician is caught in a scandal, or a war breaks out in the Taiwan Strait? Aladdin runs the numbers. It calculates the blast radius. It models the financial contagion, second by second, asset by asset. It then hands this data to human portfolio managers. It doesn't tell them what to do. It just shows them the consequences of their decisions. It shows them the cliff edge they couldn't see. It is the all-seeing eye, the ghost of Larry Fink's $100 million failure, exorcised by code. For its first decade, Aladdin was BlackRock's secret weapon. It was their in-house tool, the engine that allowed them to manage risk so effectively that they grew at an explosive, unprecedented rate. But then, an idea, a pivot that would change everything. Larry Fink realized that the money BlackRock managed was volatile. Clients could leave, markets could crash, but the machine, the need for certainty, that was priceless. So, BlackRock started to sell access to Aladdin. They became a tech company. And here is the crucial twist. Who did they sell it to? Not just their clients. They sold it to their biggest rivals. Today, financial giants like Vanguard, State Street, PIMCO, and over half of the top 100 financial firms on Earth all use Aladdin. Think about that. The competition is using the in-house software of their #1 competitor. Why? Because they have no choice. Not using Aladdin is like trying to fight a modern-day war with a musket. You're blind, you're slow, you're dead. It spread. It moved beyond Wall Street. Major corporations like Apple, Microsoft, and Google use it to manage their massive cash treasuries. The world's largest pension funds, the money for teachers, firefighters, your parents' retirement, are all plugged into Aladdin. The world's largest insurance companies use it to manage their assets. In total, over 55,000 investment professionals log in to the Aladdin network every single day. It is the central operating system for global finance, a $21 trillion ecosystem of assets all being watched, analyzed, and guided by a single AI. It became the god in the machine. And then, in 2008, the machine was called to save its creators. September 2008, the system was in freefall. Lehman Brothers had just collapsed, vaporizing $600 billion. The contagion was spreading. Bear Stearns was gone. AIG, the world's largest insurer, was next. The problem was pure, distilled chaos. The U.S. Federal Reserve and the Treasury Department, the most powerful financial bodies on earth, were completely blind. They had no idea what the toxic assets on the books of these failing banks were actually worth. These mortgage-backed securities, the very things Larry Fink had helped invent, were so complex, so tangled, that no human could price them. How do you stage a rescue when you don't even know the size of the wound? So they made a call. But they didn't call another bank. They didn't call an economist. They called Larry Fink. But they didn't hire BlackRock. They hired Aladdin. On a no-bid contract, the United States government tasked BlackRock and its AI with the single most important job in modern history: to be the architect of the bailout. Aladdin was the only machine on Earth capable of analyzing the toxic mortgage-backed securities, the collateralized debt obligations, the entire alphabet soup of derivatives that had poisoned the global economy. It was Aladdin that processed the wreckage of Bear Stearns. It was Aladdin that managed the $130 billion rescue of AIG. It was Aladdin that oversaw the nationalization of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. It was Aladdin that priced the assets of the banks that were too big to fail. This was the moment BlackRock transformed. It was no longer just a private company. It became an unofficial, indispensable fourth branch of government. The New York Times would later call it the financial C-suite of the Obama administration. Larry Fink had more power, more access, and more information than most cabinet secretaries. And it was all because he owned the machine. He was the only one with the instruction manual for the global economy. And then it happened again. When the European sovereign debt crisis hit in 2011, who did the European Central Bank call to stress test the banks of Greece, Ireland, and Spain? Aladdin. And in 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit and the entire global economy shut down, who did the U.S. Federal Reserve call? By this point, it was routine. The Fed hired BlackRock and Aladdin to run its entire corporate bond buying program, a multi-billion-dollar operation to prop up the markets. Aladdin was literally the tool deciding which parts of the American economy would be saved and which would be left to fail. The power was absolute, the concentration total. And that is the trap. The problem here is not a conspiracy. It's not that Aladdin is evil. It's not that Larry Fink is a cartoon villain stroking a white cat and plotting world domination. The truth is far more terrifying. The problem is that Aladdin is too good. Think about what has happened. In a desperate human search for certainty, the same certainty Larry Fink craved after his 1986 failure, We have systematically offloaded our financial destiny to a single piece of code. The paradox of Aladdin is this. By trying to eliminate risk, we have concentrated all risk into a single point of failure. Let me explain. This is a concept called systemic risk, but a better name for it is monoculture thinking. When every major bank, every major pension fund, every insurer, and the central banks themselves are all using the same machine to analyze the world, what happens? They start to think the same way. They start to see the same risks identified by the same algorithm. They start to buy the same assets, and they start to sell the same assets, all at the same time. If Aladdin's code, based on its millions of simulations, whispers, "The risk in commercial real estate just went from 4.2 to 4.8, everyone gets that signal. Everyone quietly, or not so quietly, moves toward the exit. A sell recommendation from Aladdin doesn't just predict a market crash, it causes it. Aladdin is no longer a thermometer measuring the temperature of the market. It has become the thermostat, controlling it. It is the most powerful self-fulfilling prophecy in history. And this is the nightmare scenario. Not that the AI becomes sentient, but that the AI is simply wrong. What if there's a bug in the code, a black swan event that the machine's historical data never saw coming, a variable it was never programmed to consider? In the old system, if one bank made a stupid mistake, that bank failed. The system was resilient because it was diverse. In the new system, in Aladdin's system, if the machine makes a mistake, everyone makes that mistake simultaneously. Slightly mysterious, authoritative, but with an undercurrent of curiosity. The pace should be variable, fast when describing chaos, and slow, deliberate when revealing core truths. The entire financial world, $21 trillion and climbing, is now leveraged on the infallibility of a single algorithm. There is no backup, there is no alternative. We have built a global Tower of Babel, and we all speak the language of Aladdin. If that tower falls, it doesn't just take down Wall Street, it takes down your pension, my retirement, the savings of teachers and firefighters, the entire grid. It is a fragility we have mistaken for strength. When confronted with this, BlackRock's defense is simple, and it's clever. They say Aladdin is just a tool, like a spreadsheet. They say they only provide the analysis. The final decision is always made by a human. They are selling a platform, not advice. It's a software as a service. But this is a convenient fiction. When the tool is a 5,000-core supercomputer running simulations you can't possibly understand, when the tool has been right for 30 years, when the tool is whispering the same answer to you, your boss, and your biggest competitor, are you really the one making the decision? Or are you just the monkey pressing the button the machine told you to press? The greatest risk of Aladdin is not technical, it's philosophical. It's the slow, comfortable, willing surrender of human agency, all in exchange for the illusion of certainty. We've now completed the debt trap your previous script described. First, we built a system of permanent, infinite debt. Now we have built a permanent, infinite manager for that debt, a high priest. We've created a machine that feeds on complexity, that profits from chaos, and that has made itself so essential that we no longer imagine a world without it. The power BlackRock has amassed is not political, it's systemic. It's the power of the architect, the power of the plumber. They own the pipes, and they sold us the water. The story of Aladdin is the story of the 21st century. It's the hidden architecture of our world. This concentration of power, this reliance on a single secret algorithm is something you will never be taught in an economics class. It is the real great man theory of history, only this time, the great man is a machine. If you want to understand the other invisible systems, the other machines and mechanisms that secretly run the world, subscribe. Because in an age of complexity, the only defense is to see the code.